Picture this. You walk into a bar one night, and in the corner you see a beautiful, stunning young woman with a much older guy, old enough to be her father, and clearly they're a couple. Is he sleazy, or is he a legend? Is he doing something inherently wrong, or is he simply following his biological imperative? If you were to ask most women about this, then the man's actions are right up there with stealing from the elderly and animal abuse. But for the longest time, I, as probably most of you watching this video, have felt like clearly these women are just bitter old hags who are jealous that younger women can get these guys that they can't anymore, and that their beautiful princess days of their 20s are over and they just can't deal with it. But I like to question a lot of these things. And so I've spent a lot of time talking to a good number of my female friends to try to better understand why this seems to upset so many women when they see it playing out there in the real world. To try to understand why so many women think older men and younger women is like something that's supposed to be so wrong, when clearly there's nothing wrong with it at all, right? It's far more complex than I at first realized. And the truth about the morality of dating far younger women is quite dependent. In other words, the morality of it is dependent on a number of factors which I'd never considered previously. So keep watching as we dive down this rabbit hole together. So I want to start by clarifying the man's version, like what most guys, how we interpret what's going on when we see a much older guy with a younger woman. First of all, as younger men, we largely get ignored by younger women, right? Most younger women, so when we're in our early 20s, most women in their early 20s are looking at and dating older guys, and we largely get overlooked. And so it's almost like this cycle, right? Women get to ignore the younger guys when they're young for the older men, so that when we're older men, we deserve to now have the attention of the younger women who ignored us when we were younger too, right? And speaking biologically, it also makes good sense. I mean, women who are 18 to 22 are incredibly fertile, right? They're up there with the most fertile they'll ever be. And so it makes sense that men of any age, 25, 45, 75, should most desire to have sex, to procreate with women around that age when they look the most fertile. So there isn't necessarily anything wrong with that either. And lastly, let's not forget the fact that once a woman's over 18, she is considered legally a consenting adult. She is considered by the law to be perfectly capable of making adult decisions for herself. So assuming the older man isn't coercing the younger woman in any way, who she decides to bump publicly with is entirely up to her, and people around the world should leave their bloody judgmental minds at home and let these two consenting adults do whatever they like to do so long as they don't hurt anyone else. But then, and here's where it actually gets complicated, as I delved more deeply into this, it turned out to be really quite nuanced. You see, think about this as a starting point. Let's pick the extreme end. Let's say 18-year-old women, just become adults, are very impressionable. I mean, yes, they're called legal adults, but let's not forget, I mean, I can say this as a 37-year-old man, most 18-year-olds are still, they're just as much children as they are adults at this point. They haven't experienced the world. They don't know about setting boundaries for themselves. They don't even know what they do and don't like. They're not good at saying no. Young women are not good at saying no to people, especially authority, right? We don't teach young women to be good at setting boundaries. They don't know anything about emotional coercion and manipulation. They're mostly quite blind to that still because they haven't experienced it. They haven't been hit with the hard edge that they can experience with men. And so you can see that there's clearly a power imbalance, right? I know as a 37-year-old man, if I was to go and start dating an 18-year-old girl, I could run rings around her in most ways, right? I can out-talk her, I can out-debate her. I am much better at setting clear boundaries. I'm much better at asking for what I want and expecting what I want. I'm much better at the social game. So any kind of game playing and manipulation, I'm generally much better because I'm an old guy with far more experience doing this. I was doing this when she was a blink in a bloody father's eye, right? So I've been doing it for a long time. And so, yes, I have a large degree of control over her. And I can abuse that control. Now, I know a lot of men are going to say, well, wait up, Damien. I wouldn't try to manipulate girls. I don't want to manipulate people. That's not what I'm about. And I believe you, and you're not necessarily a bad person or unusual. The difficulty comes when Not when things are going well. I think when things are going well, most men aren't going to try to, well, more on this later, but most men aren't going to try to manipulate their partners. But when things go sour, when you're having an argument, when she doesn't want to do something that you want to do, when resentments creep up, all the things that happen in regular relationships, I got to say that when I see this playing out in couples, right, 90% of the time, even 35-year-old couples, 90% of the time, what I see is both genders, men and women, but we're talking about the men here, try to manipulate the other person into doing what they want during arguments, during fights, when things aren't going well. There is always a degree of social, emotional manipulation taking place. And sometimes it's immoral manipulation, sometimes it's just you can't help it, you're angry and you're trying to work things out. When that happens, a much older guy will, almost all the time, invariably, let's say 90% of men are going to take advantage of that woman. They're going to coerce her and get her doing things, taking actions, agreeing to things that she doesn't want to, because they're able to create that environment, manipulate far better than she can. And that's something that deserves a lot of consideration. That point alone, I think, is something that we need to think about in depth, because I get it. Not all men are going to be like that, but a large number will when times get tough. And you see, most women have the experience of feeling manipulated and used by older men when they were younger girls. And I don't mean much older men. I mean, it could be an 18-year-old girl and a 25-year-old guy, or a 17-year-old girl and a 26-year-old guy, legally, depending on where you live, assuming that's all above board. Most women have had that experience in their lives, and they feel compelled to protect younger women from that experience. It's part of what creates the anger. It's not just bitterness that their magic years are over. It's feeling that and recognizing that in play, that's actually happening. Now here, I feel like I need to put my own caveat as well, because I talked about the difference between just having sex with a younger woman, much younger woman, and let's say having a relationship with a much younger woman, because I think that far less harm is just done having sex with a younger woman than entering into a full-term relationship with a much younger woman. And I think also when I say much younger, what I've learned from talking to women is, on the whole, women are far less concerned with a 40-year-old man or a 50-year-old man dating a 25-year-old woman than they are with an 18-year-old girl dating a 30-year-old man, right? They're far more concerned with that because they are aware, most women, even if it's subconsciously, that there's something about the younger women that they can't protect themselves. And I think that is very valid. I think that if you're a 40-year-old guy and you want to date a much younger woman, I don't think there's so much to worry about here, let's say, with a 25-year-old woman, right? There seems to be a cutoff somewhere between 22, 24 when women start to really become full-born adults with boundaries, knowing who they are, who can't so easily be pushed around. And so, yeah, I feel personally like that's where the danger starts to drop off. So the danger of accidentally causing damage to these women. But there's another thing that I didn't realize or hadn't thought about before either that speaking to women made me aware of. So if we take sex off the table and speak just about relationships, because I think sex with younger women isn't so concerning. I can't see anything that looks morally concerning there, as long as she's consenting. But when it comes to relationships, when I look at men who exclusively date younger women, especially much younger women, you tend to see a pattern with those men. And it's not always, it's not 100% of the time. So men, some of you watching who date younger women, this doesn't necessarily mean you. But most of the time, the men who do this have control issues. When you have a look at the relationships that they create and their attitudes towards dating and conflict resolution, it's very much control-based. In other words, these men feel very insecure in a relationship unless they can exert control, like undue amounts of control over the woman to control the outcomes of things. And for these men dating women their age, they can't do that. They don't get away with it. Women their age are like, or close to their age, maybe only 5 years younger, are usually going to be like, I don't think so, Buster. You're not going to get your way on this. And that's untenable for these men. And so what you get is often men who consistently date younger women need to control them. And it's a control-based relationship. And that's why they consistently only date much younger women. And again, I say date, not have sex with, because again, can't see anything wrong with a much older guy who wants to have sex with younger women. It's when a guy exclusively only wants to date younger women that typically seems to be a lot of a problem. And women see this a lot. They consistently see men with control issues. And by the way, in my experience, older women, I don't mean that much older, let's say women over 30, can be quite good, uncannily good at picking what men are going to try to be controlling and manipulative. They can sniff it out because they're very sensitive to it. And they consistently see that. They consistently see young women with dominating, the bad kind of dominating, controlling men. And so they sneer, they can't stand those kinds of men because those kinds of men are damaging women. They're hurting women. They're making the world a worse place. And so that's what these women are seeing and experiencing. And the downside is often this is a very subconscious process of what women are seeing. I had to tease this out of a number of my friends, but that's what they're feeling. That's what they're witnessing. And so every man who's with a younger woman gets tarred with that brush. And so where do I stand on things? Where do I think the morality really lies? I think that there is a very real and serious concern when it comes to any guy over 25 dating a girl between 18 and 20, like in a relationship, dating a girl between 18 and 20. I think there's a very serious thing there where damage can be done. It's not that you're a bad person for wanting to date and be in a relationship with a young girl. I'm not saying that at all. There's nothing bad about it, but you could unknowingly hurt her, damage her, even if you're generally a good guy, because odds are you have some issues around manipulation when times get tough. And most men do. Most people, we can't help it when women do as well. But again, I'm talking about men, can't help it. And so you're going to do damage in a relationship, even though you're a decent human being overall. And so that's something to be, I think more men should be aware of. Because we're not made aware of that and why that can happen. When you think about it rationally, it kind of makes sense, right? Think about when you're 18, how much damage could have been done to you by a savvy, cunning older woman. But then I also think that, yes, if you should never, ever, there's nothing bad about seeing a younger woman feeling turned on, about wanting to have sex with her, about wanting to have, just have commitmentless sex with a younger woman. I think it's totally up for grabs. If she's okay with it, she's cool with it, that's what she's after, go for it. I can't see anything wrong there. And so I think it's interesting. I think that I know that many men can look at a video like this and think, well, wait up. It's not like women don't do anything wrong in dating. Of course they do. Women do plenty wrong. But I'm making this video because I like teaching my viewers or helping my viewers to think about both sides of any problem around sex and gender and sexuality. Look at both sides, because when you do, that's the only way that you find the truth. Because the truth is never how men see it, and it's never how women see it. It's somewhere in the middle. And hopefully this video has given you a bit of an insight into the potential problems there. And maybe, just maybe, it might change your behavior slightly. And remember to try to leave all the women you interact with better off than you found them. If you've got thoughts and feelings about this video, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. As always, if you liked it, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. And of course, as always, check out some of my other videos. If you like this one, there's a pretty good chance you might like those as well. Take care, stay safe, and I look forward to seeing you in some of my other videos. Cheers.